So this seems like a design fail.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing great. Busy.
That's good.
Yeah. You?
Yeah, also busy. I saw that you have played with ChatGPT. How do you like it?
I really like it. I've been working on my AI chatbot, AI assistant for 2 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Started out as a simple Twitch bot that could respond to commands. And
Mm-hmm.
then I got access to the APIs of GPT-3, so I
Mm-hmm.
implemented those. And now I just went all in with ChatGPT. It's pretty cool.
Sounds great. I heard a lot of amazing things what ChatGPT actually can or is able to. So I think it can be pretty helpful.
Yeah. But as long as things are with interpreting text and stuff, I think that works really well.
Mm-hmm.
Where text can be code, um, but sometimes it comes with things that are just completely wrong.
Okay.
Yesterday I got the suggestion it would be better to use TypeScript. It was hilarious.
Nice.
I gave Rosie a function to um, review
Hello.
and ask for ways to improve this code, and the first answer was, yeah, use TypeScript.
Hey, Arthur.
Nice.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
How's it going, everyone?
Right?
Hello.
I'll give it maybe a few more minutes for people to show up. But yeah. Anyone happen by chance to be at a GDC recently?
No.
Would I love to?
Yeah. It was I didn't realize Jonathan was gonna be hosting another WebXR meetup there.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like almost went, but I had like just come off the heels of like another trip after like a series of a couple, and I was just kind of like, mm, I'd like to maybe stay put for a little.
There was supposed to be a Silicon Valley VR group meetup. Apparently, it got I don't know, rained out or something like that.
Mm.
Mm.
But those are good because they usually stream them. At least somebody puts it in on Discord or, I don't know, Twitch or something like that.
Mm. There was also that WebGL, WebGPU meetup that I think was happening over GDC. Did anyone tune into the stream for that?
I didn't.
Haven't seen.
I remember Jen was asking for it. So. All right. Hey, Greg.
Hey, how's it going?
Good about yourself?
I'm good, thanks.
All right. This is probably enough that we can get going. Let me go ahead and make the
Yeah.
announcement real quick. Um, Okay. So it's a little looser today because there was no official submission. So I guess I can go ahead and maybe share something that I was been working on. Source code's in a bit, but let me go ahead and get a screen share set up. Share screen. Hey, can everyone see that? Yeah, so it's actually existed for a little while now, but I made a WebXR wiki basically just to kind of like keep really close track of a lot of WebXR related things. The main thing that I've been tracking right now though is games. So you can see here. Now it does say WebXR games. This is technically WebVR and WebXR games, but I just have them all on the same list for now. So this is every WebVR and WebXR game that I have been able to find, starting all the way back to 2016.
I have trouble hearing you.
Is it any better right now, or do I need to like
Yeah,
bump my
that's fine.
volume up? Okay, sorry. Yeah, so this is a list of every WebVR and WebXR game that I have been able to find. Could someone maybe avoid touching that? That's going back from 2016 all the way until now. There's one source that I haven't fully added in here though, which adds maybe like 30-ish games, and that's from a developer from dsfx.com who made a lot of A-frame, sort of like simple puzzle games back in like 2019. But yeah, this is where I've put most of my effort. In the wiki, it's media wiki style, so same as Wikipedia, not like fandom or any of those other wiki sites. But yeah, just going back through old hackathons, different web VR events is actually pretty interesting, just to like kind of go through everything and see the evolution of web VR stuff into WebXR now. And a lot of these things are still open source, so like feasibly a lot of the old WebVR things could be made compatible with WebXR again. And then aside from this, the other main thing that I've done is just documented all the standards in a quick to find way. So this is everything that has ever been proposed by working group or community group, just in a easy to access thing. I have kind of like skipped the long descriptions. It's just mostly like a sentence or two summary, and then a little info box with web IDLs. But usually I imported all the nice wiki stuff, just to make it look, like a official-ish WebXR wiki. But yeah, this is open to anybody for contributions. So if anyone wants to help fill out anything, you're more than welcome to. That's about it
What's
for
the
me.
link?
It's webxr.wiki. Position camera. But yeah, there we go. So that's all for me. Were there any questions about that, or
About translation, is it possible to contribute to the language?
say that again?
About translation, is it possible to contribute to the language?
So I think maybe I could. I would have to set up something. It would have to be like a separate subdomain, on the wiki. I don't know how
Okay.
much of that is built in, but I can look into that and get
Yeah,
back to
okay.
you on it. Yeah, but yeah,
You can translate a few pages. That would be great.
okay, but yeah, you said you had something you wanted to present.
Yeah, definitely. Let me take the screen. Okay. Is it full screen? Okay. So, please tell me if it's full screen right now.
It just okay. It's full screen.
Okay, so it has been a moment since I first talked about it. For the first, this is a project I'm working on now. It's a search
A little
engine
hard.
for the
You're a
message.
little quiet right now.
Sorry?
You're a little quiet right now.
Oh. Am I muted? Do you hear me properly right now?
Still a little quiet.
Still not great.
Maybe I can move my avatar to make sure people. Is it better right now?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
bit better.
We're all gonna be on
Okay.
top of you, invading personal space just to hear you.
That's perfect. Okay, so it has been a moment, quite a lot of time when I started working on it. So maybe some people remember when it was A-frame weekly when I first posted some prototype. And right now, it's been a year since I started going full, almost full time on it. I am part time working on custom Mozilla Hub stuff, and the other half of the time is working on this project. So where does that come from? So you see how it's difficult to find immersive web content. Just now I'm set to just present this a content aggregator where you just supported every website you know of that support WebXR. But I don't think that's the end goal, the ideal way to discover immersive web content. And the other limitation we have is uh, the user experience of the web browser. So this is an old picture of how the beta browser used to be. Now it's better because we have a different places, a different screen around us. But I feel it's still a little bit low compared to all the 360 space we can use for being productive in XR. So right now, how do we work around this? The first solution is, as I said, content aggregators for discovering websites. You see the Meta Hub screen, Warwick, for example. And when you are searching for specific websites, after I did some interview, I just discovered that people do prefer searching on their smartphone and then putting their headset back with the solution of sharing their URL to the website. And what does that mean is that You are in a VR headset, you remove it to find content, and you put it back. This is not acceptable in terms of user experience, and we need to do better. So my goal for this project is first to make a search engine that include a web crawler that is capable of understanding massive websites, and also make a user experience that will be definitely superior and make people more productive and efficient in the massive web. So that's the goal behind the project. Right now, it's still prototyping. I'm still building. I have someone who joined me on the design team. I'm still looking for people who have other experiences to include in the project. So if you can be interested by it, please, please reach out. It will be great. The business model, there is nothing to reinvent. It's a search engine. I got inspired by what Zesty did using crypto. I'm not very huge in Web3, but the way they implemented advertising in VR could be a little bit more privacy focused than standard solution. So building an advertising system around the search could be very interesting. So are you interested by the project?
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is very new, I know, but I wanted to officially announce it to you.
Very nice.
It's very cool. Are you planning on ranking sites in any way? You know, like Google does?
Um, right now, I use two engines. The first one is, of course, Bing, because I need to index also flat content. And the second one is a homemade solution. I'm right now building the web crawler that will analyze website, and if I detect the use of the WebXR API of or a third party known to offer AR or VR, I could then try to understand the scene of the game engine
Hmm.
and work around it. There are a lot of things to discuss. There is one interesting aspect of making a web crawler for it is that it will use everything we make for making your experience more accessible. So if you write a text that make it more screen reader
Mhm.
friendly, the search engine will be able to use it. So that make more accessible website rank better, for example.
No, it's really interesting. You might, as a side effect, end up inventing like some huge way of automating tests. You know, test automation for WebGL. So it's
Uh,
interesting.
How far
so
along
there
are
is
you with the web crawler at the moment?
still prototyping. Right now, I'm using Puppeteer, for example, and what I will do is list every the most popular game engines that I use on the web, and one by one make a custom implementation for each of them in order to be able to for each game engine pass their theme. So it's a bit early to present anything, but
Hmm.
I think it's super interesting, and there are some discussion we should have together at some point on how to present more information about your scene. I saw, for example, that some game engine like 3D engine like 3GS allow on the client export to GLTF, but that's not always the case. For example, Play Canvas, as far as I know, doesn't support it. Same for Unity WebGL, and that could be a way to
Wait,
index the
can
website.
you explain that? How does something being exportable in a GLB or something like that help the search experience?
Um, right now, what is interesting about GLTF is the
Mm-hmm.
JSON aspect of it, because the database I use
Mm.
will be MongoDB, and all the content is layout as a JSON file. And if the the crawler, which will be MongoDB Atlas, is able to analyze the JSON and take
Right.
as much information as possible out of it, then a ready-made JSON format of your scene is perfect.
That
Especially if
is
it's
interesting. Yeah.
generated as especially if it's generated at runtime, because there is no spoofing data.
If you generated, what was that?
If you generate the GLTF at runtime, there is no
Oh
quote
yeah,
unquote risk of spoofing and
at
giving a
runtime.
false JSF. So yeah, of course you can work around it and give me a false model, but I think that helped in a way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to hearing more about it in the future.
Thank you. And if you are interested in joining this team, I need more arms and make it happen. But thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Is what you showed, is that site available? Is it on?
Yeah.
Is it up at?
So the about XR search, the description page is yeah accessible online. There are some old prototypes, but they're not what we are working on right now. So I don't know if you know the Discord XR design made by Marxy. It's where I found the first person working on the design team right now, for example. So there are still a lot of interesting stuff to develop, UX wise and color wise.
Very nice. Okay, well, we got a fair amount more. Okay. Anyone
Thank
else
you.
have anything that they want to like formally present, or I think that's about it for now? All right. Yeah. So, yes. Anybody been working on anything interesting lately? On my end, I recently finished up porting one of my old games from Unity to A-Frame, which has been
Mm-hmm.
pretty exciting. But I'm holding off on release because I want to include Zesty monetization on it, and we're actually in the middle of like doing a big transition on a lot of our infrastructure, which I still need to finish. So it's like a funny situation of my job is preventing me from finishing my game until I'm like done working
Awesome.
on it.
Nice.
But yeah, other than that, I've been looking towards a new project, and I've been like oscillating on what like tool I want to use to build it now. But I'm experimenting with Godot, and I'm trying to if anyone's played any more of those like tactile XR shooters like Half-Life Alyx or Pavlov or Contractors, you know how like when you do the gun reloads, you have to like pull the mag out, put it back in, pull the slide back, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build out a basic WebXR prototype of that, which
Oh,
is
nice.
I have the basic idea of it. It's just I still need to just like sit down and actually like figure out how to do it. Uh, I'm not.
Are you
I'm.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying that like I picked Godot just to like try something new. I don't know if it's like the quickest way for me to accomplish it. I mean, having a like visual editor for some of these things can help, I suppose, but also the way that Godot handles GLB imports, it kind of like freezes the different parts as a scene. So I don't know how exactly I'm gonna apply all the like physics stuff to it that I need to, but I also really don't know how I would do it in like A-Frame or something like that.
That's interesting. I was gonna ask you. I think I know because you just mentioned physics, but I was gonna ask you if your approach to the mechanics of switching out max stuff like that. If it was you were thinking physics based, kind of like creating those dynamics between the different bodies, or hard coded, kind of like if this goes there, then trigger that or trigger this.
The way that I was imagining it, just based off of like one of the tutorials I was watching, it's like if anyone knows like Valum, he does a lot of like Unity VR tutorials. So I was kind of like going off of his thing. So it's combination of like snap zones and like I think the term is prismatic physics joints, where it can only slide in like one axis. So, say you're rigging up a pistol, for example. The model that I have, it has a separate trigger, a magazine, and slide, and then the body of the gun, obviously. So for the mag, it can be like that could be its own object, and then you can like there be a zone at the bottom, at the base of the pistol, where you could grip, and then that would pull it out, and then you could just bring it close enough, and then it would snap into it, and then the actual cocking the slide, you would basically make a joint on the slide, set bounds for it, and then I guess tri- trigger an event once it hits a certain threshold. Um, After you like pull it back, I think would be
Yeah.
the way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds right. I remember Ada Rose. They they put out a demo like I think a year ago or so of the magnetic hands joining on the staircase as you climb up
Mm-hmm.
and down. And I thought that was really clever, but it is kind of jarring and kind of uncomfortable when your hand flies away into uh, like a just a hard-coded zone where your finger is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to grab. So I'm wondering if yeah, with the mechanics of the hand and the gun, if that would feel really weird, you know, getting your hand
Uh,
magnetically attached to something.
yeah, I think it depends on like the thresholds at which you like trigger that sort of interaction. I mean, also the other thing that I haven't touched on is doing hand poses for these things,
Which
because
they
because
also
you
had out. Yeah,
yeah, because you when you do these things, if you do like the alchemy labs tomato presence, where the item you
right,
hold replaces your hand, that's simple and that's good for just being able to do stuff, but it also makes interactions a little
yeah,
weird, because especially if I'm doing a tactile reload, stuff like that, then my hand is going to be disappearing when I'm interacting with
yeah,
different parts of the gun. So, and this is the thing that kind of drove me towards testing this in Godot instead of A-frame initially, because I don't know of any A-frame experience that tackles like doing hand poses for holding objects. The way
right.
that you like in VR, when you hold a gun, they have a hand pose that's like wrapped
Yeah,
around it, doing all that stuff, and then when you pull a slide, it's got the hand pose where it's like curled around the top of it to do all that and all that stuff.
yeah. I haven't seen anything for A-frame either, but again on the Ada Rose camp, they do have a repo for post detection that runs on a service worker, I think, if
Yeah,
my memory serves me right.
handiwork.
Right, right. That's I've been looking forward to trying that out someday, having an excuse for it. Is that what you're trying to use?
So not quite. Although I have been thinking about like you could maybe theoretically use handiwork to enable sort of hand poses, because the it works. It basically just
Right,
serializes hand poses as a series of like quaternions,
right.
basically describing the rotation of each joint, and then
Being the
for
one with the
detection,
shortest delta, yeah.
yeah, it detects that. But I suppose you could also just use that file as the like pose for it. Or you could use it as like a tool
Oh,
to generate the poses, because that's also kind of like the second part of what it does. It can save poses and then recognize them. It'd be really
yeah,
cool to get to
that's
see some
true.
more work on that too, because I know she only ever got a frame demo working with it, which I also helped on. But theoretically, it works with any framework, as long as you write, I guess, the like wrapper codes
Yeah, you
to
just have
handle
to,
the things.
which is honestly, I think that in the realm of interoperability, I think that's how we should be trying to write a lot of the shareable solutions, so that
Mm-hmm.
it's raw, JS, web, and then you just plug in whatever you're working with. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like
awesome.
it would be sweet if we had like universal like locomotion and interaction
Oh yeah.
libraries with all that
Well,
stuff, but it's just a
that's what
question of
I
like,
feel like we really need somebody to make a browser. Well, I figure, Wolvik and all these people, I mean, everybody's trying, but like a browser who isn't necessarily concerned right now with meeting standards consensually,
and
but
just
just
like
kind of like,
experimentation.
yeah, just going out and being like, this is a fully immersive browser. Um, these are the standards. Everybody just, plugging into these APIs. This is how you move your hands. And like, let's just see what people kind of like come up with. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see, Jen. You mentioned ExoKit. I'm glad you brought that up because last time I mentioned how I was trying to get, say, Babylon JS scenes to display on top of 3JS and things like that. And you mentioned ExoKit Web. And I looked into it and I integrated it into what I was working with. It's such a shame that it seems to be off or, you know, I don't want to say dead because the code is up and it works. But it relies on a lot of servers, like proxies being up that just aren't, and so you have to go and disable all that stuff so that it runs and works locally. But the core of it is so powerful, it's so useful. I really would love to see that come back in some
Well,
form.
I think it can if a browser team that has a team behind it, not just an
Yeah,
individual volunteer, adopted, the idea is there. I mean, the code is open source and free for them to do so, but we can rely on just unpaid volunteers to do the heavy lifting of maintaining an entire browser
yeah,
project.
yeah.
I do love conceptually though the idea of like when I was looking through how it works, then it's basically just okay, let's shim all of the like
Yeah,
XR and
yeah.
WebGL code in here to accomplish this.
So
It's just
like
like,
it
oh
hijacks
man.
the entire window object, and then it's like, well, instead of calling web, context, just here's my custom one, and it made me wonder like, how stable it is moving forward. Like I already noticed that it breaks in certain versions of 3JS that like say don't have that kind
Look
of
what
like
it could
way of
do.
communicating with the API, or that used to use VR APIs instead of XR APIs. But it
Use
is
something like it to go
so
from
interesting.
WebXR to native.
Yeah, this is
That's
crazy.
seamless from hubs to Gorilla Tag.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of power of, this is what people want. This is the metaverse people envision, the seamless portals gluing everything together. We have the technology. It's just like, I think we're lacking the mind share or resources to get it in front of the right folks to adopt it.
Yeah. Well, it's also like the incentive system is a little screwed up right now because if you think of Oculus Oculus honestly, in my view, has the best browser in WebXR. They've put a lot of love into the hand tracking and all that stuff, but like Meta as a company, I'm sure is a lot more invested in thinking how to keep you in the native things that they can control in the store than they are in super duper enabling, web first things. And same goes for almost everybody that's making a headset.
And they don't have any business model behind their browser.
Yeah.
If anybody, Meta would champion this though, because they're like a web company. So
Well, they
web is
have
their
said,
forte.
well, talking to their browser developers, they have said that the company is very committed to the web as a platform. I mean, that's things people are saying. You can't necessarily trust that, but they know their roots, I guess. So, the message that they're trying to say is that they know that Facebook came from the web, and they have that as their roots in the company.
Yeah, I mean, did you see John Carmack's his last keynote? He was addressing that they raised the price on the Quest 2, and one of the points he made was that by not subsidizing the hardware and by actually making a profit off each unit sold, they're less beholden to that incentive that they need the attention to go through the store.
Right.
Interesting.
And they rose it down. They lowered the price down.
Right. Yeah. We need to make a headset that just to try it, just doesn't implement any of the native functionalities. It just runs WebGL. It just runs a browser, and good luck. Everybody go make stuff for
A
that.
home headset.
I feel
I
like
wish
it's
there were
possible.
more open source headset initiatives out there. Like, I mean, obviously the big one is Relativity, which the original guy is like a founder now for like a new one called Unai, which is supposed to be a standalone headset, but we haven't really heard any like new developments on that in a while, at least from what I've seen. He's also like supposed to have some kind of Unreal Engine metaverse stuff in it too, which I think is just kind of like
Any
I
of
don't know
y'all
if
have links?
diluting is the best word, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
liked the idea of Relativity more because it's just like here's an open source headset, like here's everything, like go
I
crazy.
don't think
look
I've
into
heard
them.
anything from them in like 4
Yeah.
years. At
Yeah.
least 4 years, maybe even 5.
First time I'm hearing of it. Yeah.
The Pico headset, is that something that I mean, it's not open source and it's probably from the wrong country, but does it work?
Well, that's interesting you bring that up. Pico, their web browser is catching up to Meta browser in terms of functionality based off of what they're like. I think it's like head of web like content was posting on Twitter about a while ago. Like they're working on layer support and immersive AR sessions, like actual proper immersive AR sessions. And they're now, and then they also have this interesting like it was described by the dev as like a 3D web view um, project called MetaWeb, which I think is kind of what you were talking about, Christian, the sort of like more experimentation focused thing. It was a tweet from Fangzhen Song, and he posted this demo of like a CSS detached elements,
I saw
basically,
that. Yeah.
which that actually was a one of the proposals, like community group,
Right.
for immersive web, I think, and there's an actual implementation there,
Which made me think. I've been wondering why, because there are 3JS libraries like the CSS 3D that applies the transformations to the DOM, so that basically you get that perspective and that Z dimension, and that stuff doesn't work in XR, right? You don't have that DOM overlay there, but there is such a thing as the DOM overlay API, right, for mobile. I think it's the first kind of idea behind it. But is there no talk of basically bringing the literal DOM into WebXR via DOM overlays and just apply transformations in CSS like it works in 2D?
So actually on the WebXR layers
Yeah.
repo, there's a PR from Rick, I think, that proposes adding DOM layers to the spec.
Right.
So basically, like what everyone wants, like actual like DOM content on a quad
This and frame
in there.
would be so great.
Yeah, but I think the main concerns, it was something about like it would not be properly respecting like depth or like rendering order or something like that.
Oh yeah.
A bit hazy on
I
the
could see
details,
that. I could see that. Well, we could probably figure that out.
Yeah, we already have some nice stuff with a 3D CSS already for flat content, so that do some nice occlusion stuff.
You
Yeah,
can
I mean,
great for like making user interfaces too.
Yeah, the WebXR API already gives you a target texture for rendering. Why can't it give you a target texture for a depth layer?
Right.
No, you have to hack it. I just posted a link. It's not really working, but you can mimic it or fake it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have
I
you
thought
tried Hyperbeam in
I
3GS?
had saw that issue about DOM layers, and I kind of felt like it was more about Google wanting to protect their DRM moat, not being able to pull Netflix into WebXR. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. No, but it really would be the that would
all
really
the
be the
Wi-Fi and
dream.
stuff is still in the browser. Like,
Yeah, it was like, the only way to get a YouTube video in a WebXR experience is to proxy the video first. You can't have any of Google's own plugins be able to get you a video in the WebXR experience itself.
SLT was talking about the
That's such a
Hyper-V
pain.
as an iframe approach that would allow for at least that, you would imagine.
Yeah, it seems to work well. They already have a 3GS and a WebGS solution support.
Also,
I
Play
think
Canvas.
there was also
Sorry?
like
A Play
sorry, Jim,
Canvas
you were
implementation
talking.
of
their
Hyperbeam.
Hyperbeam stuff.
Yeah, it's WebXR enabled now too, and they added a keyboard.
Oh, perfect. I plan on using
Interesting.
search engine more productive. It would be so great.
I think the Play Canvas guys did some tests with Hyperbeam and were successful with that.
But Hyperbeam also, I think, still at the end of the day, they're like proxying you like the screen as opposed to being able to actually like load an iframe.
Yeah, well, that's a VM. That's the best thing we can do for now for having web content.
I remember reading through the discussion. Somebody mentioned that there was like a WebGL like iframe extension, but it was also like not very popular. I think because it required like origin isolation and all that stuff, which everybody loves setting up on their domains.
Yeah.
What is it?
It was a WebGL extension. It's like WebGL underscore iframe something or other, which I haven't read the specific specification on it, but like just from hearing it discussed in context, it sounds like it was kind of trying to do the idea of like loading iframe content in WebGL, but it was also like not very widely adopted.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the ExoKit web does. They introduced this concept of the XR iframe, and yeah, they basically just plop an iframe on the DOM and then basically trying to ensure that everything is in the right domain so that your WebGL context remains clean. It doesn't break anything, but it is via iframes. Like I think there it does work.
Yeah, and then they're using like YJS to like pass messages between Windows
That's
2,
right.
I think.
Yeah, that's right. But it's written in a way that it tries to make each thing that gets loaded not necessarily know or care that it is kind of like in an iframe, but be a fake kind of like virtual environment. That's clever.
That is pretty clever.
Did anybody see that StereoKit is supposed to be working on WebXR or WebGL as an endpoint?
I saw that they made a demo of like WebGL export a while back.
And he said he's prioritizing development on I think it's WebXR and WebGL. So
Very nice.
I don't know if it happened or didn't. I joined their Discord to try and check.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I haven't dug too much into StereoKit. I've been in their Discord for a while, but yeah,
My understanding
interesting to
is
see like more engines trying to work on WebXR support.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the new Rust game engine that came out recently, Ambient, I think it's also like on their roadmap, like still kind of far off but it's also on there. And then I have a list of a few other engines that either have like OpenXR issues or WebXR issues as like need to implement this. It's like Bevy and this I think it's like a Hax powered engine. I can't remember the name of it right now, but yeah.
This thing on the window here though, with the multi-kit, you notice how it's opening Moonrider, right? And the controllers become kind of Moonrider controllers. How are how do people think about the prior prioritization of assets when you mix scenes together, right? If one app says I want hands to look this way, and one app, that's overlaid says I want hands to look this way. How do people think about that challenge? What solutions have been out there
If
or thought of?
I don't know exactly how Exokit handles it. I feel like if it were me, I would just render whatever like I guess the most immediate layer is. So if I've
Hmm.
loaded like an experience on an experience, that last experience is what I would render hands for.
Hmm.
But then also the ability to change out stuff would be
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean,
Jen, you said it was bracelets?
if you could do it spatially, that'd be awesome. Like
Yeah,
the
I was
this
thinking.
app is running here, and when your hand is over there, it renders with its model, and when you move your hand over here, like the but
At the
that'd be so
moment, it does
trippy.
Yeah.
everything.
Is it
So you
Vue.js only, or does it support different game engines?
what you're seeing on the screen is Babylon and 3 at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so that's
nice.
why it
Yeah,
has the Vive controllers and
yeah,
the launch.
yeah. Yeah, that's it.
It should be super costly to have two game engines running at the same time, right?
I was thinking of bracelets in the context of like, you know how maybe it's a background tab. So for the inactive 3D tabs, like they just kind of dock on your wrist like a bracelet.
Oh,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I
There's so
Yeah.
kind of
much
feel
like
like the whole controllers thing, changing controllers out, is like having like back in the early 90s or the late 90s on the web, having custom cursors on every website.
oh yeah.
You have like
Yeah, I hear you. That's true. I mean, there's a world where we just kind of give up on the idea of every website having its own avatar system and navigation system, and it's just kind of all browser, base layer provided. And then, you can customize on your browser settings what you want to look like or your hands if but not every website's going to be taking over like
supporting it.
the
right,
rendering.
yeah. I mean, right
Interesting. Yeah.
now we're kind of the state of WebXR right now is basically like, hey everybody, let's make your website into through a canvas layer. If you had to
Yeah.
make your like personal profile website or your news website or your corporate website
Yeah.
out of just rendering 2D elements on a canvas, or Flash.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem, really, that like the state of the APIs and the platform right now is just like, hey, why don't you make your own operating system and just to run your little website? Like, you
Oh my
know,
God, yeah. The amount of time that I spent on pointer events, getting pointer
yeah,
events to work just like you expect them to, because
yeah,
they
yeah,
grew organically over 40 years, and now we have to replicate that.
Makes
yeah.
sense.
It's interesting. Like my that's why I really think that the kind of the WebGL um implementation of it, like the next stage of making, client side things, really has to be grounded on the DOM. Like really has to be grounded on
Right.
the things that we've already established as being patterns that people build with. And then it should all kind of just plug into that ecosystem instead of trying to reinvent the wheel about every little aspect of it.
it really feels like immersive mode should be a CSS media query. Like you can have different different layouts for screen or for print. Why can't we have a different layout for VR? Because we have the CSS 3D to do it after that. So
yeah,
and
really. Go ahead. Sorry.
And if I mean, like in the 2D web, if you want to make a 2D game that completely takes over the screen, you have that. That's there. That's available. But for everyone else, for the vast majority of apps, they're going to stick to the standard UI metaphors.
Yeah, and the economic incentive is there because, I mean, like all the Shopify plugins and all the e-commerce little panels and all the things that people have been building for 20 years to run on the web in 2D. Like, wouldn't you want them to just magically out of the box work in an immersive space?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that has really been disappointing about Microsoft's XR stance and how they basically spawned Windows MR and Windows holographic and then did nothing with it. And I look at the Windows holographic home environment and how that works and how it's fundamentally different from the Meta Quest home. And to me, the Windows holographic home, it's essentially what I want out of an immersive web experience where you have objects that can be loaded in additively into your environment. You define the environment, and then other things can be loaded in, whether those are 3D models or they're interactive elements.
I actually never experienced the Microsoft one. That'd be
when you say
interesting to hear
Windows
more.
holographic home, you mean the like default WMR like White House environment with like the little movie theater and all that? Or
could run. You had 2D apps that you could run, and one thing that was never explored was there was support for interactive 3D objects that could be loaded into the environment, and so to me that's what makes the most sense. To me, this environment that you're in, that's your PC desktop. Any old website that I'm visiting has no business replacing that. If I'm going to a news website or a shopping website, they have no business replacing my environment. They should be loading in objects inside my environment.
Oh, that's interesting. So you wouldn't want to click on a link and open a portal that takes you to a completely new space, or like that even transforms the space around you. You want to have objects embedded in the environment that you've already chosen for yourself.
Exactly.
Oh wow. Okay, that's different. That's interesting. I like it.
That's like getting the newspaper as opposed to going into the newspaper room to read stories.
It's also like it really touches on the direction that the web really has been going in, even in 2D, which is components. Just like we are out here, and maybe you don't want to build the same square website that everybody has been building forever. You just want to build the component of it, and that you want to specialize in being there. And that's true. People are gonna have not their square 2D thing. Like, we don't want to keep replicating that. They're going to have their environment the way they want it. And you're going to have components be loaded in and out that, either deserve to be there or don't deserve to be there. Yeah.
Right.
I get it. That's nice.
That's a very good idea, I think. I disagree with some points that were made. I don't think that the 2D web translates well into XR. I think that tabs are wrong. They are even wrong in 2D, but even more so in 3D. And I understand that it's tempting to say that CSS and HTML and JavaScript is there in 2D, and we all learned it and we all know it. But then again, there's actually no reason why CSS looks so different from JavaScript, which looks so different from HTML, which of course are three totally different things. But 50% of me agree that we should build on standards, and the other 50% say let's start from a clean slate because that's simply not the same.
Right.
Well, that's
No,
that's what I was
true.
saying about, on the 2D web. If you want to go completely off the rails and do something, crazy, you have that. You have HTML5 Canvas. You have the Canvas API, and you can do that. But for this more narrow use case that actually fills 80 to 90% of most people's web presence needs, we have this document format that is much more suitable. That is, it's standardized. It's what people know. It's actually pretty good. I mean, if you really, a lot of people have legitimate complaints about HTML's design and how DOM works. But if you really look at all the alternative UI kits out there, they either have made the same decisions or different ones that are equally maddening in their own way. And it's yeah, I really think that HTML and DOM and CSS are a pretty good cross platform UI toolkit when you really break down all the concerns that you need to have.
You don't have to agree that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript kind of result in the best architecture to see that, to agree with that, because I think that it's clear that when it comes to specifically UIs, like building things that people need to interact with, I think it's very clear that HTML, CSS, you can even leave out JavaScript for that. Just having those semantics for those kind of structures has been incredibly successful, and people are to this day trying to replicate it in other environments that are non-web. But you don't have to agree that it's like the solve all be all for software architecture to accept that.
Right.
I mean, I'm doing vanilla for a long time now, and there's React, there's Vue, there's Angular, there's Post CSS, there's Tailwind, there's we all can go on. I mean, all of these constructs are built to, I don't know, mitigate the shortcomings of the old web, so to speak. And I totally agree that the old web 1.0, well, not the very old web, but you can do everything with JavaScript, you can do everything with CSS and HTML, and you can use Canvas as it was said. But the whole ecosystem, the plethora of ecosystems that are out there show that there's not one thing. There's, for example, I personally would totally agree that web components is a good thing, but they didn't catch on, I think. And so my major point would be that obviously something is missing. Because if there's not something missing, why are people inventing JavaScript and CSS frameworks every hour?
Let me say this. I think that web components is really not trying to be that framework, in my view. Like the problem that we're solving with web components in the web platform is it's basically composability. It's how to compartmentalize, how to create this capsule, encapsulate all your logic for your standard web behavior, put it in this little capsule, and then feed it to some other application. And so it's not trying to say what is the best way that we can do state management in your application, and what is the way that you're going to do routing, and like that's the framework is always will have a place, but the web component is really coming in strong for how to give somebody the capsule of what you want. Because you know what's really annoying when you want to get a component, a UI component that you want to bring into your application, and you're not a React app, and the component is only in React. And what are you going to do? You're going to have to like figure out some way of loading it into your application. Web components is that for you. I think it solves a different problem.
Amen.
And there's a huge enabling feature there with the shadow DOM. and having the separation of the CSS structures. How many times have I tried to import a component?
Yeah, I do want to register agreement, Dirk, on something you said though, which is the tabs. I also think tabs are probably not the way of the future, but they are really a browsing navigation decision more than they are a web platform decision. Like
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
really have uh, a web platform enabled family of software that does not have the navigation construct of the tab, and that doesn't say anything negative about the platform.
Yeah, especially if you look at Arc browser, where they're completely
Right?
reinventing
Yeah.
the way you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I love you brought them up because I actually their concept, if you go to their website, and it's a really frustrating like eye rolly website. It's like it's obviously coming out of New York. It's like very fancy, very kind of
Mm-hmm.
it says very little about the technology, and it's all about this will change everything about your life, and okay, whatever. But if you look at the videos that they post about like the work that they're doing, I think the philosophy is exactly where we should be, which is they are calling it the internet computer, which is just like, listen, you're just running things that are connected to each other, and they're connected to each other via the internet, and that's just the web. Like, that's Google Docs runs on the web. Your files are on the web via Drive or whatever you want, and you can plug in whatever file system you use. If you use Dropbox, if you use Drive, Google Drive, whatever you use. The point is, it's the internet computer. Like your computer is on the web. That's the web. Arc is, I commend them. They're doing a really good job.
Which product are you talking about?
This is called Arc, is a browser by this company very creatively named the Browser Company.
Yeah, they're from
Yeah.
Berlin.
Website is arc.net.
They're not from New York. They're from Berlin, and I
Oh,
think.
really?
But I agree with everything you say.
Really, I don't know why. Then I thought they. I don't know if it was aesthetically, if I read that they were from New York, or aesthetically they look like the New Yorker magazine kind of. So maybe I assumed they're wrongly.
Yeah, but
that's surprising.
I have Arc, and I didn't grasp it within the first 10 seconds. So I'm trying to get into it. I hear people saying that they needed some time to get into it, but once you get into it, it's really great. But yes, they do try to get away from the tab concept, and in general, I think that's a good thing, trademark. But if it didn't catch on with me,
I gotta say, neither did it with me. I like, for all I wanted to really like it and love it, I couldn't. I First of all, what I did is I tried to remove all the native apps from my desktop that I could replace with Arc. So Slack, Spotify, even I tried VS Code because they all have web app versions. And so I was like, okay, let me try to replace Outlook and Teams, Microsoft Teams, all this stuff with just their website opened in Arc, and pretend that this is kind of like my desktop. Yeah, and I wanted to like it. I wanted to really live in that future, but it's weird because it's the little things like the keyboard shortcuts don't work on the browser the way they would work on native. You're triggering kind of like the window utility instead of like the application shortcut. It doesn't work, but it's so small. It's like right there, you can see the future, but it's has these little things that make you miss the browser and the native app separation.
Maybe you should try Vivaldi then.
Which one?
Vivaldi. That's the one I use. It's super customizable. You can do everything you want with the tabs. And
It's called
make it
Vivale?
Vivaldi, like the musician.
Vivaldi. Oh, interesting.
Vivaldi is great.
Chromium is super
It even has
customizable.
mail client in it.
Yeah, in the calendar and everything you want.
And the mail, but good point. Vivaldi is a very good point because they broke with the tab concept in a different way. You could tile windows within the browser. I like that very much, but again, this also didn't catch on. But I agree that Vivaldi has a thing going.
Yeah.
I looked them up. I didn't know about them.
Is Vivaldi still like being
you
actively
can group
developed?
them, rename groups. Oh yeah, there are some issues with sometimes WebXR, but I think they are like catching.
Are they on a Chromium base?
Yeah, it's Chromium. Let me see. Let me see the version.
Very cool.
But in general,
It's
I think
a 1.0.10.
there's a. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Just wanted to show the version.
I think we all have the feeling that there is space for a new browser experience, and I wouldn't even mind if it's Chrome based, but I think that both Arc and Vivaldi and probably some other browsers out there have a point when they say, okay, let's look at web in a different way, and like let's say the browser is a sort of alternative desktop that gets shared across multiple devices of yours. Desktop being one, mobile being the next, and VR, of course, being another one. So, I think there's something that we didn't see yet that should be not replacing the browser, but should be an add-on, or should be a different perspective into the solution realm.
Yeah, different window into the web.
Yeah, exactly. And if not WebXR, what else would be the best way to do this paradigm shift?
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's even things outside of imagining a 3D immersive web that, like, the 2D web can still go further. Like, there are ways to improve that little keyhole through which we perceive the web. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be just thinking about the immersive aspect of it.
Oh, you're right. The Arc is actually saying they are from New York on their website, on the bottom right.
It was the font. That's the giveaway. I mean, the font, if you look like
No,
you're the
at
New
the
Yorker
bottom of the
magazine.
site, the link at the bottom of the page is from our friend at the browser company of New York.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay, sorry, then I have that wrong.
Citrix. They're still Apple only.
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
I
What about
bet.
Citrix?
I bet.
They're waitlist for Windows, but they're available on Apple right now.
Oh.
You're right. I was wrong. Sorry.
Oh, please. No worries about that.
Isn't there another group of like there's like a group of browser developers from, like, if not Berlin, then Germany. Like, aren't the Suckless guys from that area?
Is Brave
If anyone knows what I'm talking about.
No.
It's they do like a minimal sort of browser. They're one of those groups with like that, that sort of Unix mindset of like web is too complicated. It should do one thing, like browse the web and not be like its own OS and stuff like that.
CLI
they have they've got a browser that's kind of like based along those lines. I'll have to look it up later.
Just sounds like the opposite philosophy to Arc, really.
Yeah,
like you're saying, their view is it should be
Arc's trying to like
simple.
enrich the experience even more, and then these guys are like of the feel that it needs to be simpler.
Yeah,
it should suck less.
It should suck less, but I don't know. I kind of I'm yes, the performance concerns are always going to be there, but I think we should be challenging the web to not add not be complicated, not be unconsumable, but be complex. Like, these very rich applications that are running on the web. More of that. Let's not strip away all the meat of it.
But it's really important, to be able to give people an outlet where they can express themselves outside of app stores.
Oh yeah, that is
One might say we
such a
have a
good
moral
point.
imperative.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I wasn't even coming from the cultural aspect of not even having to ask for permission to put something out there. That's huge. Yes.
There's a good newsletter from a guy called Paul Butler called Browser Tech that I'm following a little bit, and it gets into WASI and WASM and where that's going, WebAssembly sort of stuff also, but how it affects the
Oh, very
browsers.
cool.
Interesting. You said that was Paul Butler.
Paul
Yeah,
Butler.
post the link.
And yeah, I'll put a link in. Good idea.
Please. I once did an application for a public TV station in Germany, and the thing was that they wanted it to be a web application, so they hired me, and I created web application. And the point was that they wanted to have their clients, children, youth, to use a audio sampler on their webpage, and so everybody was content that it was not an app that you have to download from the App Store, but a web app that you can actually, it should have been PWA, but Safari thought otherwise. Different story. But the point was that after some time, people were posting in the discussion forums of this TV station, and they said, can't you make this as an app?" And then they said, "Well, actually, we just created a web app so that you don't have to
So that you
download
wouldn't
it."
have to.
It's
Yeah.
like you're already using it.
Well, I'm a teacher. I'm using this in school, and we can't open our browsers to the open web. We have to have it as an app, which was a bummer.
That's interesting. Like, because regardless, okay, because I mean, regardless of, because you could help them install like the literal little box that opens the web view, and that would power your PWA, but they're restricted from. I mean, you're going to be accessing the open web no matter what. Like, that's just a website. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I know. But that's
crazy.
the whole app thing is also a paradigm shift, which Steve Jobs actually was very smart in doing so. He just invented the word app as an acronym for application, and created a store which is exclusive to these forms of apps, which was genius in an evil way.
Yeah, that's true. I always think about that. Like, imagine if his decision or their decision at the time had been that every website you open, suddenly when you go back home to your home screen, you have like the little app square that you normally would have for recently viewed, and it just kind of builds over time for quote unquote apps that you've used, i.e. websites that you've used, and the construct would have been entirely different. People would have thought about it entirely differently. Of course, it wouldn't have been as popular because the performance wouldn't have been there at the time. But yeah, now it's just something we need to work with, I guess.
Well, that was the interesting thing when the iPhone was first released. There was no app store. And Jobs said, well, if you want to make custom functionality, we've got this great browser with HTML5 support, this brand spanking new HTML5 stuff back in 2007.
Apps should
Do
have been
that.
HTML5 apps in the first place, and that's what he thought too. He wanted to kill Flash, which
Yeah.
he did. And if they would have stayed
Rest in
with
peace.
what is now known as progressive web apps, everything would be cool. But they didn't, because money works different.
Yeah. I mean, to give them some credit though, like it's true that the work they've done to give their apps like a feel that is very high in quality, I think I don't know. I might take this back. I think it would have been very hard to accomplish on the web, given where the web was at the time. But I don't know. Maybe if they had invested in it, we would have seen all sorts of solutions come out. So I don't know how true that is actually.
Yeah, I mean, that probably the difference between the Android Google Play Store and the iOS App Store. You can basically get everything into the Google Play Store and not everything in the Apple Store. So yeah, there's some sort of quality difference there, but yeah, I don't know.
Christian, you
By
were
the way,
talking about
sorry.
replacing desktop apps with web apps.
Right.
I've actually managed to do that for about half of the apps that I use.
Really?
I've just done it with Edge. With Edge, you can pretty much any website open the menu in the browser, and then somewhere in there there's an option to install this site as an app. And so that's how I've got SoundCloud, I've got my Azure portal, I've got LinkedIn and Twitter and Mastodon and a bunch of sites that I don't go into the browser and then navigate to them. I just click on my icon on my taskbar to open it.
So Edge is your operating system, and you just click your apps.
Yeah, it gets rid of. It actually largely gets rid of the Edge Chrome, and Google Chrome has the same option. And I think Firefox does too. That when you do install an app, install a site as an app, it gets a desktop icon. It can get a taskbar icon, and when it opens in a window that has no address bar. It has no tab bar.
No arrows
I think
up and
that's
down.
just like a feature of PWA is the like amount of Chrome that you want to like have it. I think you just said in like the manifest.
Right. But this can be done with any website, even if the site hasn't set up a service worker or has an app manifest. You just a
Are you talking
standard
about desktop or mobile?
both. You can do it on both.
Mobile is a different story on iOS as always.
Yes.
And the very application that I talked about broke in Safari mobile because um, I try to spare us the long story, but the short story is that things break in Safari if you add something to the home screen, and you can't detect this from within the app. The Safari, the WebKit actually looks identical from the development perspective if you create a PWA, but once you add it to the home screen, things break.
And by home screen, you mean of the OS itself, not of Safari?
I'm talking iOS, and yes, if you create a PWA and it works perfectly in Safari, and then you add it to the home screen, and then you start it from the home screen, the app will behave differently.
I want to flip a table.
Wait, but in what way? What's the why?
You can't. Why?
Or like what's the symptom? Like in what way is it not working? No, don't. I know that Safari and WebKit go and do their own thing for a lot of things, but
the application that I created was able to record audio so that people can create samples and loop these samples. And the application perfectly. If you don't create a manifest that says this is a PWA, and once you can do that, but once you add the PWA to the home screen, the recording functionality will not work anymore. And some people found this out 1 week before they launched their app, and you can imagine how content they were with it. If you ask me why, then I would say that Apple really, really, really tries to break web apps because I actually can prove that. they try to, pardon my French, piss off web developers that hard that they never will try to create a web app again, especially as a PWA. And I I was very lucky that my client understood this because they had a huge tech department that supported it. But if my client would have been different, then I would be in deep trouble. And this thing, I mean, imagine you would never guess that adding something to the home screen on iOS
Right.
devices would make a difference from
Yeah.
starting the
Never.
same application in the browser, and it does.
Yeah, I mean that's that. From that point of view, it does smell like sabotage. In that way, it's like, oh, thank you for writing this amazing website, and I'm sure people will love it. The minute they try to make it look and feel the same way that the apps that we approve of and that we get money from, then sorry, you're not going to compete on that same category.
Android has a somewhat similar issue. And up until 5 years ago, it was very similar, where, yeah, anything that you installed locally would get the system web view instead of the default browser. And so, if you had Chrome as your default browser, that was different from the system web view on Android. And and so it also became a problem, like if you had a native app that opened an activity, a web activity, that could end up in the system web view instead of the default browser. And today they no longer have the system web view. I think it's around for compatibility reasons, but they're no longer driving things to the system web view. But they still don't necessarily respect the default browser. So like I have Edge installed on my phone because of password sharing and everything. But a lot of apps that if I open a web link from say Discord on my phone, then it will open within the Discord activity window, but it will be Google Chrome inside of that activity window.
Yeah, but you can detect this from the version. You can detect this
Right.
as a developer. And the problem that I just pointed out showed the same version of Safari or WebKit, which is really a pain in the butt.
Right. So you can't
Motion to flip a
even
table.
customize. Yeah, motion granted. Boom. That was I don't know. I don't have a gavel, but well, do judges even gavel when they grant? I don't know who grants these things. Motion granted.
Did
By the
you
way,
see there's a guy who put WebXR on iOS? It's a variant is the name of the company, and
Yeah,
they're
I've been
using
seeing them.
a web view, but with a layer translating WebXR calls to ARKit via
Oh wow, I
app
had not
clips.
seen that.
It's interesting.
Didn't you say he's
put
also
the
using
link in.
something called app clips for it?
Yeah, he's using app clips. Yeah.
Wait, aren't app clips like a native construct from iOS? Oh,
Oh dear.
I see. Very nice flip. I mean, it's getting paranormal, the level of flipping here.
I would not have done that if I knew that was going to happen.
But wait, Jimmy, aren't app clips? I'm probably misremembering the name. Aren't app clips those little snippets of apps that iOS has for when you like get your phone close to like an NFC tag, things like that?
So he says run a small amount of code without the user downloading an app.
Right, right. Yeah, those are interesting. I haven't seen like extremely useful applications. Um, this sounds interesting. How does it work? Like, how does the app clip help the WebXR uh, embedding or implementation?
I need to
Like,
fetch
what
my
does it
iPad.
enable?
Or is the app clip just like the mechanism that is like being used to deliver? It's not like integral.
Right, I'm wondering.
And they might close that, but they might consider it a backdoor loophole or something like that. That it might only work till the next version.
Ah, I see. It's like unofficial support. Can you share a link to that? It sounds interesting. I'd like to find out more.
In the chat there, if you follow the
Okay, thanks.
Oh, is that how the Mozilla WebXR viewer worked conceptually? Similar, depending.
Oh, is it?
I've never actually looked at what the internals of it were.
Yeah, the WebXR viewer. That's older though than app clips. I think.
The repo for it is open source. I'm pretty sure. But I like looked through it and I didn't like totally track what was happening with it.
What
But
about
it was also like an Xcode project, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sean. I didn't measure my strength there. Your table has been flipped to the next world over.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
wondering what was going on. I'm sitting here trying to not touch anything, and things are moving around all around me.
I was gonna ask you, MSub, if anybody knows what I forget A8 or A8 or there's a team and it's like a blue orangey color, purplish, and they run kind of like iOS WebXR experiences. Like I've seen their website, A8 Studio, something like that. I don't know how they get their stuff to run.
Is it 8th wall?
8 wall, that's it. Thank you.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. So Eighth Wall is doing all of their image processing in a web worker.
Okay. Interesting.
So they're not relying on anything on the platform itself.
Right. Seems like a wasted opportunity to put something out there for people to leverage it, I think. I'm sure it's like proprietary in some way, but still.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
It's got like plans and stuff.
Wow.
But
They do
8th wall
have a representative on the immersive web working group, though.
They do or they don't?
They do.
Oh,
I
okay, good.
actually I sat in. I crashed a working group meeting one time, and they had a guy from AFL there.
Oh, interesting.
But 8th wall is basically A-frame, right?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure. I think they
No,
start A-frame and they are using A-frame heavily, probably doing their own proprietary stuff.
Because I was gonna say I thought all their CV stuff was like in-house.
I think they have an API. I think they can integrate with Wonderland engine as well, if I recall correctly. I haven't tried it. I've tried 8th wall way when they were, I think, not even officially launched. I haven't looked at then you had to pay a lot when
of course
to get things going, so I stopped looking into it.
Yeah, but they're doing something right because people are using it. It's hugely expensive, but it's working, and I think that's
especially enterprise.
the point.
I mean, the results they get look like pretty good. So
Yeah, it looks really nice. Also the AR, especially.
They have Niantic behind them right now, right?
Really? Okay. I didn't know that. That makes sense.
I'm watching at their website now. It actually said Niantic 8th wall.
Yep, okay. That makes sense.
Okay, they do even more
Niantic.
things right than I knew.
So wait, that they got acquired? Is that what that is?
I guess I'm trying to figure that out.
Huh. Well, good for them. That's interesting. Niantic, heavy on the native interest side. I wonder if they look at this as kind of like an entryway into the web.
Bought on the 10th of March.
This year.
So right
Yes,
now. So like,
last year.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow. They're still drinking the champagne from the acquisition. Like,
By the way, somebody, whoever did the first presentation, and I was on Twitch then, not here, talked about doing a game with monetization. Don't remember who it was, and he mentioned a tool or something that he wanted to use to do the monetization. What was that?
Zesty. You're talking about the presentation that was up there?
Yes.
Yeah. He was talking about Zesty. The
Sorry?
slide he had is a little outdated because it has the old copy from when Zesty was like Web3 focused. We're actually in the middle of transitioning off of the crypto stuff. Basically, as far as infrastructure goes.
That's the.
But yeah, Zesty.market is the website. Ooh, I've got like
Do you have a
3
link?
chat messages overlaying right now.
yeah, Sam, I was like, Zesty, you can put quotation marks on a URL. It's like, what the? And it's like, no, it's just the one that's behind.
Yeah, I got like 4 chat messages Z fighting each other.
Is it still lagging? Is it, when hubs, you see a chat message in VR?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Everything
like
freezes for a good 5 seconds.
I really wish I
Damn.
knew why it did that. Like, I'm sure
Or are
there's
you
an
not
issue for
in?
it on the repo.
Are you not in VR, Jen?
No, I just feel
Yeah.
for those because I'm dropping those lag bombs. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No
that's
worries.
fine.
It's got to have something to do with like the text generation, I feel like. But I mean, like the SDF like stuff should already be pre-generated, like the character set. So I don't see why it's like such a hit for it to generate like a little bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, the text isn't transparent. Like, there's no opacity competing in there. So I just don't get why just one being rendered on top of the other doesn't just like magically fix it. I guess the characters must be having some logic on the painting there.
Okay, the click. Yeah.
But I don't see why it'd be the audio sting either. It's just like a little audio clip.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean when you send a message and the sound? comes with it?
I think after this, I'm gonna go look through their issues repo and see if anyone on the team has any idea why it's happening.
Right.
I am looking at the repo right now with the issues.
Yeah.
I don't see any issues.
It's something
like
that
chat message VR.
Perfect. There are no bugs. What are you talking about? This is smooth. There's nothing.
Well, there's
No
one
one's
case
ever told
issues
us about
open.
this before.
it's something that like in my app that I develop, I just do Canvas 2D to render the text. I don't do SDF. And so I've got to render them pretty large to make them high enough resolution. But it's not actually that big of a burden. Like everybody's like, oh, it's the performance of doing that is terrible, and I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really seem to be that big of a deal, and I get full Unicode support. Like, M sub there.
definitely.
Right.
Yes,
Like you don't get here.
M square with an X in it.
Yeah. And it's not even a square X. It's like a rectangular X.
Mm-hmm. But that's my favorite thing about having this name is just going into like 3D apps and then seeing who can actually render my name correctly.
Yeah.
It's really fun for conference and stuff to do those things on name tags as well. I always add like a little flower
it's cute.
or yeah, if it works, it's fun, and if it doesn't work, it's even funnier. It helps on LinkedIn as well. If someone is really sending you a message, then they will type your name, and if they would generate a message, they would include the other characters.
Oh, that's smart.
Wait, so actually, this is something I'm ignorant of. How does the other method that's not SDF enable emoji support?
The Canvas to 2D?
Right, or yeah, sorry, I just don't know what it's called.
It's using the browser's built-in font rendering. So it's using the same font rendering which is probably like here in Chromium browsers, it's probably Skia. It's probably Harfbuzz inside of Skia.
Okay, and then it translates, it projects that onto the WebGL image. Like, does it?
Well, you create a canvas. You create a canvas element.
Yeah,
you create
you paint on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
I
create
get
a
why
canvas
people would tell
element
you that's
and then,
expensive.
huh?
I understand now why people would first think, "Oh, that's so expensive," because like for every text you're rendering, you're painting, basically, more or less taking a screenshot and then copying it over to the WebGL context. But you're saying,
No, sort of. I mean, because it's no different than texturing an object.
right?
Canvas elements are native WebGL texture objects that you can give it. Because when you're drawing to a canvas, the browser has a bitmap somewhere. I mean, it has a texture somewhere, and so under the layers, when WebGL gets that texture, it's not really copying the texture from CPU memory to GPU memory. It's just passing the texture ID over for the texture that's already in the GPU.
Oh, I see.
For a chat like this, you can create a pool of just a couple of images. How many chat messages are you going to see at one moment at all?
Yeah.
If you would put a lot on the screen, it will be 10 little images. If you would just create a pool up front and just reuse them, I don't think that there is any burden.
Okay, I see. But this would be different, or actually, tell me if it would be different from. I've heard of this talked about in the context of HTML, like how to bring HTML, make them into textures, bring them into WebGL, and that is often talked about as being very expensive. Let alone that the quality of the output isn't great. But would this be, it sounds like a similar concept. You're reusing the browser's rendering engine to take care of that most complicated aspect of it, and then you're just copying over the texture. Is this the same way, the same kind of performance concerns?
It's a little more primitive than like HTML to Canvas. HTML to Canvas is basically like a really dumb HTML parser. I mean, not dumb, but basic. It's extremely basic HTML parser. And I think
Very verbose, on the nose. Like it really runs it and.
Well, so like it's been a while since I looked at the code, but I think it uses the DOM and it uses like style sheet queries to figure out what to paint, but then it's just manual graphics 2D API calls to then draw that. And so so there's a big switch statement for different tag types inside of there, and then you got to kind of like manually wire up pointer events to make it work.
You're saying
And
for
so yeah,
text.
it doesn't.
For text,
So it's not
that.
The text is again the same thing of making manual graphics 2D calls, but you're not querying the DOM at all. You're not starting from an HTML construct.
Right.
My first foray into WebXR development was almost 8 years ago now. A project to build a text editor in VR, syntax highlighting text editor to be able to live code in a WebXR session. And so even then, I mean, there's a little bit of lag if you're typing fast. There was a little bit of lag back then. Today, it's not really even noticeable. And so, I've got a window that's, probably as big as that window with the duck over there behind Earthworm Jim, and sharp enough text rendering on it, and some clever sub-image updating. But it's perfectly acceptable performance if you just do things smartly.
Wait, are you saying that they got better over time because of more work that you did on the text processing aspect, or just because the rest of the ecosystem kind of like enabled something?
Both. So okay. I eventually got to where like you could type probably like 50 words per minute and see the updates in real time 8 years ago. And then nowadays, there's no noticeable lag at all, no matter how fast you're typing.
Very cool. And this is something you're maintaining? It's still out there?
It's still out there. Maintaining it is.
Yeah, it doesn't 404.
I put a little effort into. I converted the code over to TypeScript about 2 years ago, maybe 3. And I've done a little bit of updates to it. Having no native keyboard in WebXR makes some things difficult.
They just added it for request. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's weird.
What's weird too? I tried I was really excited for the V50 update to the OS to come in, and like for some reason my headset got it late. Like I kept seeing online people were trying it out, and I never got it until later. But once I did get it, what I was excited for was the direct touch. That you could actually touch the UI, and it's directionally correct. Like you can tell that this feels good. This feels better. I think that pointing and clicking with controllers, but it is still very not satisfying, very not intuitive. It doesn't feel super right,
I haven't gotten it on my Pro yet. Some of my Quest 2s at work have gotten V50, but for some reason my Quest Pro has not gotten V50 yet.
Yeah, but
I haven't had a chance.
the keyboard with that direct touch functionality, and so it is weird, but you do get it when you are in XR. You click on it, and here you have it. But only your index finger, right? So you have to type with your fingers like you were 5 years old and just touching things. I really would like to use my entire hand. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it could use a little update. Primrose was the project.
Oh yeah, I've seen that repo before. Anyone remember Lexting?
What is it?
it was a guy who was like proposing an like alternative sort of input method for like typing in VR, where as opposed to like just typing on a keyboard, he basically had it set up so that you would use both of your hands and you would like move them through a series of like a three-dimensional grid of like characters in order to type out. So that
Okay.
basically your hands would just be doing this and it would be doing that. Always thought that was like a very
I
like
love that already. Yeah.
unique idea. Yeah, and he like the in his demonstration he had like some pretty decent like speed on it too, but I think it was only
Yeah.
ever made as like a Unity app beta
Interesting.
for the
I
video.
love
He's never
that.
released it.
It really touches on something you were saying, Dirk, like the about starting from scratch versus reusing the constructs that we have. That like it is true, like stuff like this is inspiring because you're saying, hey, here we have a different medium, like a different way of interacting with technology. Let's just not rebuild what we're using for our other interfaces, and let's just go crazy, see how other ways we come up with of writing and how other ways we can
Well,
come up
that's
with
what Mayo
game.
Control Labs, you know, the EMG system, the Mayo,
Yeah,
the
and that's
wrist-based
not
system.
recreating mistakes we made in the past.
Yeah, exactly. What was that, Jimmy? The Excel, the Mayo?
It's Control Labs was bought by
Meta,
Meta
right?
and
Yeah, the
folded into
wristbands.
their and they are the guys behind it. There's an interview he did with Ken, the Voices of VR podcast, and they're talking about as a complete replacement for typing. You just imagine that you have the very limited flick of your fingers, and they say the bandwidth that you can type at is faster than your spoken word type of thing.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, that project honestly looks what my controller looks really really interesting. They really don't want um because basically I don't like controllers. I want to use my hands, right? But if you try to use your hands, you'll notice like on your Quest or any headset, and if you have hand tracking, your arms get really tired like very quickly. You like have them up here and you're touching things, and suddenly like you get really tired. And their idea is that like, hey, like you can have your hands at rest, but all the motions that you would normally do, like we can detect them through your wrists, right? So it's almost like mind reading, like a brain interface, right? I would love to see that touch, like reach the world and see people like use that API to come up with crazy things, just like new ways of writing, new ways of doing things.
Show of hands, who has gotten to try the Mayo armband?
Not at all.
The
You
what?
did?
Anybody? Yeah,
On the
one time
Kickstarter?
we had
Oh my
one
god.
in an office I was working at, and nobody could figure out how to get it to do anything.
Of course.
It would
the
it would
Kickstarter was
connect and it
hard.
would just like sit there. And you could see the data streaming, you could see the data streaming in and trying to do stuff, and nobody could figure out how to work it.
What year was this?
Were
Do you
they able to
remember?
trigger anything, or was it like just triggering
No,
random
no,
inputs?
this was 2018.
Okay,
Because
so
it
somewhat
started as a
recently, yeah.
Kickstarter thing. Yeah, it started as Kickstarter under Mayo, the MYO wristband, and
Yeah.
then that kind of went, nothing. You got what you ended up with. They didn't have a software backend for it, but that's what Meta
Yeah.
has provided apparently.
Yeah,
Like
2018. Honestly, 2018 was 10 years ago. Unrelated to WebXR, but uh, I have this feeling about the year 2018, 2017, 2016 that like if I'm scrolling Netflix or YouTube and like I click on a stand up and it's from 2019, I can't watch you. Like you don't know what the world is. Like you don't know anything about the world. Like the world has changed. I can't see anything.
Very
There
good
was a
point. Yeah.
show. There was a show with um, what's his name? J. Jonah Jameson from the Spider-Man movies. Um, H.K. Simmons, he'd done this show back in like 2017 called Counterparts, that was this like multiversal thing where he was this like clerk at a bank in Berlin, and then eventually learned that the bank was a front for covering up this interdimensional portal in the basement, that there were
Yeah, I
actually
saw the trailer. That was great.
yeah, there were actually two Berlins, and there was like a light Berlin and a dark Berlin, and and so this originally came out in like 2016, and one of the plot points was that uh, the light Berlin had attacked dark Berlin with coronavirus, and it had killed off like 40% of the population, and the rest of the population was wearing masks. And I remember reading the reviews of the show and how people thought it was so unrealistic. And then I never encountered the show until starting to binge stuff during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was so weird to see this show that I knew was before, but then it looked like today. And it was and this was the dark universe version.
Did you say it was coronavirus in the show?
I think it was actually H1N1.
Okay.
I think it was
that does
think
sound
it was
little
a
more
weaponized version of H1N1.
A little less suspicious, let's just say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. But yeah, on the wrist ones, I've never tried them, but I would be excited to. It looks interesting.
A lot of money can move from some YouTube videos and a Kickstarter that nobody ever gets.
Oh yeah.
And tactile user interfaces in general, I think, are going to become a thing, especially with the pass-through MR technology improving. Once you can get object recognition of your viewable space in front of you, you can superimpose a user interface guide on pretty much anything from a salt shaker to your, cup of coffee.
Right. Yeah, I mean, not to fall on the web developer stereotype of like Apple's either going to be the savior to all, our god, or our doom, the demon that's going to destroy the web. If Apple doesn't come out with like doesn't take advantage of their iWatch for something similar to the wrist thing for when they come out with WebXR, I think they screwed the pooch, or they are, yeah, bringing doomsday.
That's my big fear with the Apple VR headset, whatever it's going to be, is that they're either going to get it exactly right and it's going to destroy the rest of the market, or they're going to match the rest of the market and people are going to say, "Oh, VR just sucks. Not even Apple can do it," and it'll destroy the market.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same way. It honestly has to be really good.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not an Apple fanboy, as you probably can tell, but but if they get things right, they get things right. So I'm very much in favor of your first option, Sean.
I'll give you Jin, the explanation for Apple hype from my point of view is that here you have a company that doesn't claim to be the most innovative, right? Like I think there are a lot of companies out there that are first to almost everything that Apple, has done really well. And here you have a direction for digital technology to go, and you have Meta and Google and Mozilla, all these companies that in Microsoft that have invested in the direction. Apple stays quiet, and from our point of view of people that I write on MacBook, like I like Mac products, I have an iPhone, saying like, okay, when I'm using the Meta one, when I'm using the Microsoft one, like this is an idea of what it's gonna be like. But once Apple comes in, like they are gonna be late, but they're gonna be, you know, user centric. Like they're gonna really like prioritize me and the user experience. And so I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for, that Apple is late, but they get it right. So yeah, high expectations. I don't know that they've earned that reputation in recent years necessarily, but that's my hope.
Which brings up my question: Ada Rose Cannon, WebXR was hired by
Went to
Apple.
Apple, yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody know what she's doing?
Hope I do not.
I asked her. She
I
won't
know that
say.
her.
She won't say. Okay.
Nobody says. I had a coworker leave last week because they got hired at Apple, and I don't know what he's working on. He couldn't say. He won't say. And this is somebody I know that I work with. Apple is extremely secretive. Like they don't tell even their people what they're going to be working on. It's sick.
I mean, that's part of the success, I think. But whatever she's working on, I guess that's the thing that you were talking about.
I sure hope so. I mean, you hear
I have to
things.
imagine she's doing something like immersive web related. Like, I mean, otherwise, why would they hire her?
Yeah. Oh, we love your work on WebXR. Come, I mean, there's also that. I could also see them like, we love all the work and the advances you're putting on WebXR. How about you use your energy to advance the iOS world
Well,
instead,
I'm
like the
wondering if
real
maybe it'll be similar to what she did at Samsung Internet, where it was kind of like developer like advocacy
advocacy.
type
Yeah,
thing.
I don't know.
Kind of like get the word out about stuff. I could see that maybe being the case.
Yeah, I could see it. Honestly, I think that this year we'll probably stop speculating and get some sense of where things are going with them. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I'm not
Yeah,
expecting much from them on the hardware side, but the software will be interesting to see if
Yep.
they bring their aesthetic to the look to a new the XROS that they're going to come out with, and how that looks. There was a Canadian company that they bought that was in the last leak. They were talking about the development environment that is going to be enabled at this. They're supposed to launch it just before the developers conference, and they had bought a Canadian outfit that was designing is almost like a Unity editor, but it was specific towards 3D tooling and game experiences, and allegedly that's what they're going to be turning people in the direction of. And whether that supports WebXR, whether that's only 100% native, whether that will integrate with ARKit and all of their other tooling sets is a question mark, but it'll be interesting to watch that one.
We'll see. I mean, I think that they definitely all across the board, if you see, like you're saying, the companies they've acquired, the products that they work really well with, where they integrate, like there's no question that they care about spatial something. Like, their AirPods and all the kind of Beats world, they're all about, sound around you and, being able to feel immersed in that. They obviously care about spatial technologies. It's just a matter of in what direction and how much, I think.
Why are you saying, Jimmy? I think why are you saying that you don't expect much in terms of hardware?
It'll be the latest thing that you get, but I don't think it's gonna. I don't think they're gonna reinvent the pancake lens or come up with some new bird bath redesign. I mean, I think they're gonna. They may not even be. They're not going to try and compete with Hajaro or the super high fidelity guys. But what they're going to use is commercially available off the shelf hardware components. I don't think that maybe they have a micro LED. There's a lot of questions on what they're going to actually deliver for $3,000. But to me, the hardware is a temporary accident when they happen to launch. What's available and what they were able to find in a supply chain that still makes sense, in the environment that we are in right now, where there's those aren't easily controlled variables. And it's really the software where I think they might provide their innovation, with a whole new, hopefully spatially aware environment to work with.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, on the hardware thing, I don't know much about the specifics, but I am counting on them on making it pretty. Like, at the very least, approachable aesthetically. I think that not every company prioritizes that. Especially like interestingly, a lot of Japanese companies are making really sick things, but aesthetically, a lot of moving pieces and things that maybe consumers irk away from, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that Apple parts are heavily manufactured in China.
Well, I was gonna comment on that on the supply chain thing where I think that I hear you, Jimmy, on the challenges that all these companies are gonna have to respond in terms of supply chain, but Apple specifically, you haven't seen a lot of reports on new operations in India, Vietnam, um, that are new, platforms. Obviously, like you're saying, they're China huge, like that's where they're mostly invested. But it's possible that for a new family of devices, they are kind of looking elsewhere away from the current supply chain.
True, but that's a purely economical, not ethical decision, I think.
And they're miles behind Facebook and Meta, the Meta investment on R&D that they have just in the pure optics side of the house and whatnot. I mean, I don't think they're in the hardware game necessarily. Their advantage is going to be customizing things to whatever the MX version of the chip that's going to be in there, and that's where their real competitive advantage is going to be. They
Right.
don't just own the firmware; they own the silicon underneath it, and that means you can tightly couple that in ways that's not capable on a XR2 chipset, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that Carmack talked about back even with the Oculus Go, was just the amount of ripping and tearing he had to do through Android to get decent driver performance.
And Apple
Yeah.
will have that solved. I mean, that's why they're going to be, they will provide, they're going to have a lot more polygons per square inch, in terms of what they can break out with the same battery budget.
By the way, if you didn't see the Lex Friedman interviews, John Carmack podcast video slash something, which clicks in at 5 hours, but it's super interesting. 5 hours really
That's the
fly
problem
away.
with Lex Friedman. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I want to be invested for all of it, but man, 3 hours, 4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, but Carmack really he can talk and he's super interesting. Yeah, I really time flew by. So, but I'm a Carmack fanboy. So
Oh, that's interesting. Was this before or after he left?
while he left, he explains why
Oh,
he left
okay.
and why he starts AI now.
It's
I'll put.
interesting. I'm definitely gonna check that out.
It's something I'm concerned about right now, is the hype train for AI. Um, people are really getting into it, and it seems like a lot of people have lost patience for hearing anything about VR. I mean, I don't mean within,
Yeah.
developer community, but like just talking to people in general, like trying to pitch my
Yeah.
project to clients. They're like, yeah, whatever. Talk to us about AI. What are you doing in AI? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
exactly,
can you
man. It's
incorporate
eating all the
ChatGPT?
oxygen in the room.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I'm sure on one hand it's welcome, uh, well, you tell me, but I would imagine that like now that you are approached by people that are actually looking for the solution that you have to offer them, not because it's hype, but because it's actually the right thing for what they're looking for. Is that not like removes a lot of the crap maybe that was coming your way before?
No, it's been an uphill battle the entire time.
Um, okay. I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
I've seen projects come up with announcements that would have gotten a lot more traction on social media. And I just think really there's just so much going on with AI, the site, people don't have the bandwidth for anything else at the moment. And so it's
That is
a
true.
tough time at the moment.
I mean, I personally, I barely have the bandwidth for just the AI stuff, though. Like, it is so much coming every single day. Like, will I have a job tomorrow? Will, like, so many things. And then Microsoft with their integrations into Teams and Outlook's like, Jesus Christ, like, everything's happening so fast. And I don't blame people for feeling overwhelmed. And especially, I think that I hope it's not unreasonable to say that the Mark Zuckerberg effect to the brand of VR has been a little toxic for the mainstream culture. I think that um,
A little.
yeah. I mean, okay, frankly, it's been very toxic. Like, I think that the technical contributions
killed it.
are unquestionable. Like, I don't want to take away from any of that. Like, I think a lot of the effort has been well placed, but the kind of like cultural aspect of it has been really terrible. Yeah.
I mean, he literally killed VR. I mean, this is the third wave. I know there are several people here who are not 20 anymore, so I dare to say that this is the third wave of VR that 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 just doesn't work. And this time we can really place the blame on one person, and this is Suck. Uh,
Yeah.
and uh, and he bought Oculus, and Oculus was a great company, and then he screwed it up with the Meta thing and with the metaverse thing and with buying in the whole metaverse uh, idea, which was totally different from whatever he thought that it was. So he really desperately killed it all by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
Twitter's
know if that's
metaverse hype really kind of did a number.
yeah. Well, it's also like when the message is, "Hi, good afternoon. I am here to replace your reality." Like that's a strong statement. And then if you follow that with cartoons that have no legs and like like people are gonna say, I mean, either you're talking trash or this is really what you mean, and there's no way I'm gonna give up my reality for this. Like, no, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I think like there's no middle ground in the narrative around their vision. Like slowly, like kind of like think problems, solve problems for people little by little. Like, don't replace, augment.
Doesn't look
Yeah,
like
but
the brand
they,
recognition was like really bad too. Like people calling Horizon Worlds metaverse was something that I still see today. People's like, oh yeah, I tried a metaverse, and they're talking about Horizon Worlds. I'm just like,
And you know what the most disappointing is? Those people are not just like random people. Those are people at The Verge. Those are people at Wired. Those are people like that are supposed to try to kind of report on the reality of technology, and they're like, "I
better.
spent 24 hours in the metaverse and it sucks." And it's like, okay, whatever.
As the Verge's Oculus Pro review has this big headline, "This thing is terrible. What is Meta thinking?" And then when you actually read the article, it's like, actually, this device is pretty great. Here's a couple of
Yeah.
things that I didn't like. I'm like, why are you?
It's frustrating, man. I don't know. It's like the same thing in every. I wouldn't be surprised if uh all these media they had like the New York Times, for example, they do the content of the opinion pieces are written by the contributors, but they don't get to pick the headlines. The headlines there's a separate department, for them because they need to scare you and get you to click, and there's a marketing happening, and obviously this is happening everywhere and at every media outlet, at every kind of like tech journalistic thing, and outrage and being pissed, it works and sells, and so people click on let's be angry at Mark Zuckerberg because his vision is stupid. And it's neither here nor there, really.
And it's a business model, if people are going to continue the cellular data to advertisers as the organizing principle of the metaverse, then I think a lot of people prefer to be someplace else. So that factors into it.
It's also the like the business model of it got really tangled with the Web3 kind of digital property aspect that I think there's
That muddied the water a lot.
definitely an overlap and there's definitely a connection there for people that want to seek it out. But you don't need one for the other, and you don't you don't. They can be separate concepts, and you don't need to build them in parallel. And I think that Meta specifically drew too hard on the concept of like your things and your digital assets, and imagine all the Gucci bags that people are going to be buying and displaying in their homes. Like, listen, like maybe, but that's separate. That's a separate set of problems. And people find that kind of gross and scary sometimes.
We're looking at AI. Did anybody check out there was a AI 3D tool set thing that got Sketchfab up in arms, a little Objaverse.
No.
Yeah, they
Objaverse
just
is
like
the name of the
scraped
project.
Sketchfab
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
So
and like
they
called
did
it
like a
basically.
Dolly or Mid-Journey approach, and they brought in all of the Sketchfab resources, and I haven't been able to use it. I didn't see a link to it. I think you can build it yourself in Hugging Face, but I haven't self-generated anything. But you could say, give me a refrigerator with two doors, one of them opens, and that could be your refrigerator standing next to you. Apparently.
Hey,
What was the name
that's
of it?
crazy.
Objaverse.
OBJAVERSE. It's done. I mean, the guys behind it are
It's in
the
the chat.
Paul Allen
What? You
team.
need 10 terabytes?
Yeah,
No,
it's
Is that what you said?
3.2 terabytes. You're
Jesus.
gonna need
Is it
at
3
least 6 or 7 terabytes of space.
I thought that I read a comment from one of the like model owners saying it was like 8.5 terabytes for like the whole data set.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
So
something like that. Like,
I
I mean,
closed
you
my
got to consider
laptop
it's
lid when it was at 7.
it's
Chrome-
every downloadable asset from Sketchfab. Like,
have to host the model like client side, like you have to run it locally, or there's no server.
It's all really gray waters. Like Sketchfab updated their TOS. Ian is looking into what they can do at this point, but yeah,
because like
yeah,
almost all of the models that are downloadable are also like CC BY. I think for their license, only like 3,500 are actually like CC0.
yeah, but that's fine. You're still giving permission for people to use it, and every attribution is encoded into the GLTF file. So because they're all GLBs, they have the metadata of authorship encoded inside of all of them. Sketchfab does that.
Are
by
they all
default.
GLBs?
Wait,
Yeah.
I don't think you're saying this, but are you saying that the generated output includes the licenses of things it borrowed from? No, you're not saying this.
No, I'm saying everything that you upload to Sketchfab, they inject the your author and some information, some metadata into because they convert every model to a GLB and USD Z file.
Yeah,
So,
but this can be easily deleted because GLTF is basically ASCII with a binary file in it. So I just uploaded a model to Sketchfab today because I wanted to see if the user data survives Sketchfab, and it does. But it's easy to just delete every information in the GLTF unless I understood you wrong.
Yeah, but I think the question is like, did the researchers do that? Which I don't.
But they did not scrub
imagine
it. They kept it.
It doesn't
And
sound
their
scalable.
claim is that they extracted the data before Sketchfab enabled a flag that says "Do not do not AI
don't
this
train.
stuff, whatever.
Yeah, don't
Yeah,
train with this.
not for training.
Oh,
And
that's
so
that's why I have to sign off something today. Okay, thanks.
Okay, okay. So that sounds like a solvable problem. Like, change the data set to be whatever it is now that people have been able to opt out.
it's the Allen AI guys. They're behind Semantic Scholar. I mean, that's one of the. They're really. I mean, they're one of the more ethical houses you can find out there. I don't think they did it like with any sinister intention.
Right. Yeah.
It
And
is.
lots of
It
questions.
is kind of odd. I was just browsing the Hugging Face page of Observerse, and there's just like those 800,000 models are just on there. They're just GLB files.
Yeah.
It's just they're GUIDs, GUID.glb, but are those all the files from Sketchfab?
Yeah.
Then
Anything that would have been publicly downloadable, yeah.
okay.
But that's what it used for its training data. So when you say, give me a refrigerator, and you explain the dimensions of it, and you want it to be a certain color and with a power lead out the backside, it's going to draw from it. It's drawing on the resources that were on Sketchfab and others, of course.
It is interesting because the techniques used for training with text data and generating text cannot be used for these kind of files that are binary files. Or even if they are ASCII files, it just doesn't make any sense to generate something random. You have to interpret the images as well. You cannot say, well, I have this chair and I want this chair to be red. There is no. So I'm very curious how they would do that.
No,
Isn't
that's
it the
exactly what you do.
same predict?
That's exactly
Well,
what
sorry,
you can
go.
do. You can take a GLTF file, and in the ASCII part, you can detect the material, and then you can change the color from yellow to red.
Yeah, but you cannot change then the geometry of the chair. You can change the geometry of that specific chair, but you cannot create a new chair out of thin air.
That's
there is
true.
no there is nothing that would say, well, this is you could render something out and say, well, this is a chair, and maybe train with that, but it would be
maybe
curious.
that's
I would be
well,
really
the
really
Sketchfab files
surprised.
are tagged too. There's a bunch of tags for everything that people tag their models on Sketchfab. So I imagine they probably trained the model using those tags. Like here are all the chairs, and now
it's labeled.
Now hallucinate a new model that also has the tag chair.
Right.
I mean, the major problem is that all of these models exploit open source data that's available there, and the university models are probably doing this right, and the meta models and whoever does that just scrape everything and then exploit the data from there, and there's no way we can change that. But in the end of the day, it's just a big copy of user generated content and not the best one.
Yeah, there's got to be
the attribution is still there in the source
compensation.
file.
Yeah, but you don't know if your content was used in the generation of this other content.
Okay, throw up a page that says, here are all the contributors to the data set for this model. Any models generated from it may include influence from these. There you go, attribution.
Yeah. Look, that's a possibility, but I think that the model that you put out there has to incentivize good quality content. And so I think if you find a way to reward good work, that like it isn't just like here is this garbage that like this bunch of people, the soup of them produces, is like, well, no, actually, control for the quality. You're going to want to incentivize those people to get in the data set somehow, and that's the challenge. How do you reward? How do you, how do you incentivize good players? I don't know.
Well, in terms of text, you can, because text is out there and you can't, fingerprint text, or you can fingerprint audio. You can maybe fingerprint 3D, as source code says, but or implied, but
Well, I mean,
again,
in text, you can say things like write this in the style of Dirk, and like, I think that there should be some way for the benefit of whoever is doing that loves the text that you've put out there and wants to write like you. I think there should be some way for you to benefit from that, you know?
I agree, but I don't think this is the way the world works. I
A
mean,
lot of the new
I'd love
systems.
to. I'd love to see yes, you're right, but I'm a part-time musician, and what do musicians do? They basically copy off. I mean, since Led Zeppelin, every band copies from some other
Inspired by.
band, and excuse me, inspired by, yes. Um, I let's say Steel and Led Zeppelin. Even
Let's
they
make it
said,
worse.
and this is kind of okay in terms of that's how inspiration works. That's how I mean there's a probably there's a fine line between a blatant copy and some sort of inspiration. But if you're a big corp, then like Google's Bard um, copies over the sources, and I don't think that OpenAI does this. But again, this is I don't know how to deal with that. It's basically we now have Google now has to cannibalize themselves. Right now they have a search engine, and if you enter something into the search engine, then you get not only the links of the relevant websites, but also snippets of these relevant apps websites. You don't even have to leave the Google page anymore. Now you can ask something, and now you get a text describing exactly what you want without even visiting the link. So
Right.
that's
But
probably just
that's the
generation.
thing right there is, look, I'm not going to claim to know what the answer is, but somebody had to write whatever was behind that link. And if these models, like, imagine we do not find the answer to this problem, then and we just have these bots basically regurgitate all the content and culture that is already out there. What we're going to end up with is a bunch of cycles, in there. Like, it's just going to be self-referencing bots of content. You otherwise won't have people generating the content that then these bots are going to be able to link and extract information from if they don't feel compensated in some way for doing that. And I don't like ads, but right now Google does offer some way for people creating information online, or not information, entertainment, anything online, to be, you know, compensated in that way. If we just are going to start generating things by scraping that, I, as a consumer, I'm happy. That means more content for me, of course. But over the long term, that means crappier content as well, unless we find a way to benefit creators.
I totally agree. Is someone here that who remembers CompuServe? Because CompuServe back in the days was the internet before the internet, and then um, everybody and his brother scraped content from CompuServe and put this on FTP servers and Gopher and stuff like that. So that was the first. We had quality content that was paid for in CompuServe, and then all of the university networks copied that and put this on the FTP servers, which was good in a way because now people could get content for free. but the content that they got was at least partly from CompuServe. Now we have an internet that distributes everything for free, and now the AIs, which by the way is just machine learning, copy that over and make it in a way that we don't even recognize the sources anymore. And now we think that there's an artificial mind behind that, because it's a fancy way of copying things in a way that you can't really see the source anymore, and you don't even know if it's true. And we all know for now that 80% of that is correct and 20% is false, and you have to find out which 20% it is. And if you can't find that out, then you wouldn't have needed the AI
You
in the
made the
first place.
question anyway. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, folks, I gotta head out.
Yeah, same here. I'm gonna.
Yeah, guys, good session.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice
Later,
to see you.
taters.
Have a great weekend.
Bye. You too.
Guys.
Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao, everyone.